as you can imagine, doing what I do means by coming across all kinds of people from all classes of life, from all religions and ages, and of course, as a political activist, I should be interested, and I am interested in discovering what it is that makes people do and not do stuff. What I've discovered today is that there are people. Okay, there's a person I've come across on social media who's taking on the same attitude that a lower class person would. I mean, I know he went to a good university, and obviously, his education is superior to the people I mean, who are bumping along at the bottom. And I mean by this his attitude of, well, why would you want to why would you want to fix anything? Anybody who wants to fix things is some tyrant or some aspiring tyrant, and the usual dismissive things that I've heard. People, libertarians, especially libertarians, are the worst of all, because most of the time they're just sort of, rich boys who can't see the point of anyone struggling, because they would be dismissive of those people, and I think these people are the worst of all, because they would affect not to know what you're talking about, and have these, dismissive attitudes, as well as, actually incorrect apprehensions of things. But obviously, as I do what I do, I notice that there are certain attitudes to what I'm doing. Or some people are patronizing, and others dismissive. Others are filled with indignation that I should even try to solve these problems, because I think it's the idea that what do I mean? I think the attitude is, who do you think you are, thinking that you, of all people, might have the solution? Well, I wouldn't even dare. I know my place. I already know nobody's going to listen to me if I say anything. So I think this is mainly the problem, and you would expect that kind of attitude from somebody bumping along at the bottom. But this person is kind of high up, or I think he is. I think he's quite affluent, but obviously not in government circles. So one must take into account, the perspectives of people whom one might encounter. And I'm saying basically that it's obstructive, obviously, because, who does one go to for these things? I mean, obviously, you think, if you have a solution to a national problem, you would go to the national leader, and you would expect, a whole bunch of gatekeepers, who are you? What's your business? Are you, maybe somebody lower ranking can help you? We don't want to bother the, top man with, what may be nonsense. That kind of, gatekeeper attitude. But it doesn't appear that there's even a department for this. So I think when I am dictator, I would I would want a department of complaints and solutions. Wouldn't that be nice? Then we'd all know where to take our problems to. And I would hire civil servants who would, well, deal with your problem and, um, or tell you why it can't be dealt with, or give you some kind of satisfactory answer. I think that's important, so I'm certainly going to do it if ever I become dictator, a ministry of complaints and solutions. And I know people will take the mickey, but we'll make sure that they will take it seriously. And if they don't watch out, they might be labelled as troublemaker and treated accordingly in a humane and reasonable way, of course. So what else? There's a video by Oren McIntyre, and it's a rather pointless one, I thought, because it was so hopeless. So it says conservatism is dead, build something new, and it starts off with a survey of American attitudes, how they're no longer into religion and marrying and having children. They're more into money, and that there have been marked attitudinal changes in Americans in the past few years. Presumably, just before Trump got elected and after Trump was removed from office. So these years have been turbulent years, and will probably be more turbulent as he tries to get back into power. And I go back to what I am trying to do, which is to help. Really, I'm saying I have the solution. Why don't you consider it? Why can't you just talk about it in a reasonable way? Like, well, what is it you have? What is it? Or what do you have for us? Why do you think we might find it useful? Something like that. But there's never even the obvious next question that is ever asked. So I feel I am talking to an entire society that is neurotic and in denial, and you can't have a proper conversation with them because so many subjects that they have to avoid, and they can't talk to you, and they when you want to raise a topic, and you don't want to ask a direct question, you have to beat about the bush, ask talk about the weather, ask about their health and their father, and before gently broaching the subject. And this is what I think I'm doing. I mean, basically, I'm saying, well, what do you think religion is for? And you would have thought that, with people who are educated and think they're capable of a philosophical or political discussion or two, they would engage, but they all run away. So it seems that the British are divided between people who feel the pinch and are forever whinging online, or people who just don't see the problem and are happy to carry on the way things are. And of course, they wouldn't be interested in my solution. But I'm wondering who would be. I mean, obviously, people at the bottom would want an amelioration to their troubles. Of course, they would. And you would have thought people at the top would think, well, yes, we would like something that would make our jobs as a government easier. You would have thought that people would be interested, but not really. I guess I'm not talking to the right people. Or the right people don't want to be seen to be talking to me because of what? They already know my solution and don't like it. I can understand that. But do they have a better solution? And it appears that they do not. I know I often don't do the things that I should be doing. You put it off, you delay it, you put it on the back burner, as they say. But at this stage, we're just talking about ideas, aren't we? We're saying, well, there is a problem because so many people are moaning. And, well, somebody thinks they have a solution, so, well, why don't you hear them out? I suppose a lot of the problem is people think they already know the answer, some of them think it's the Jews. Others think, perhaps some others think, it's the Catholic, it's the Episcopalians, it's the, blacks or China or, whatever bugbear they have. They just want to blame it on their favorite villain because, what's the point of having enemies if you can't blame everything on them? And I think that is a form of hidden idolatry, really, because you should only blame the people who really are to blame about certain things. I know there are times when it's actually quite hard to work it out. It seems, on the one hand, that nobody is really to blame, that everybody is to blame. But I'm hopeful. A lot of people think I haven't got very far, but I'm actually more optimistic than that because I suspect that my ideas could get much further, much more quickly if I had the cooperation of the Fourth Estate, and I'm not getting their cooperation because they're very tightly controlled by the CIA, as I was saying earlier today. And but then, all it takes is for somebody in the CIA to change their mind, or somebody who decides to go against the orders of, whoever. So I just have to be patient and to be consistent and not to keep changing my mind and have basically the same message that I have had for all these years. And as Nietzsche said, interpretation is not a function of truth, but that of power. And I have the power to interpret things in exactly the way I want, even though you think it's silly or you disagree. So there are always two ways of looking at things. As they say, there's a silver lining in every cloud. A glass filled up to a glass with water up to its halfway point is either half full or half empty. So while I haven't really had any people in senior government circles taking an interest in my idea. The fact is that people bumping along at the bottom have no better idea either. And when I talk to them in, I guess, in an intense way, because obviously they're trying to find holes in my position, and I'm defending my ideas. I mean, I don't mind doing that. I really don't. I mean, obviously, you should, if you don't like my idea, of course you must scrutinize it and challenge it and test it to destruction, and it is completely all right. And it would be sensible too, and I would do exactly the same thing. But I get so few intelligent questions. And this is a problem I have. People they won't ask the obvious next question. It is as if they want the conversation to end as quickly as possible, and they know that if they don't say anything, I'm less likely to be able to go on about what I want to go on. So situations when in a group of people, and there's the Greek war, and you're new to the group, and then you ask them what it is that what's their bee in their bonnet, and then everybody around the table just groans collectively because he's just been a bore about the subject, and they don't want to hear it all again. And perhaps I am a little bit like that, but I can make it short and snappy. I can be succinct. So what I'm saying is that the problem is attitudinal. People just don't care. They don't have the right attitude. They don't want to solve the problem, and they're just happy to moan about it. And the people at the top who could be doing something don't want to hear it because they don't want their job to be more difficult, or really to have more on their plate than they already have. And they only take orders from their boss, and I'm not their boss. And what is interesting too is that people have very strange conspiracy theories. I'm talking about Paul von Helton, and he was talking, what was it? The 1871 Act, and something about the sovereign citizen, I think, or was that John Vance's idea? So they all have these sort of very complicated, esoteric legal concepts like admiral law. I still have no idea. Oh, and corporations, and and so somehow this sort of brings the royalty, the European royalty, back into the American Republic. I think these are very old conspiracy theories, so I tend not to take them seriously. But also I would like to emphasize that what Vaughan feels, which is that countries going to the dogs. They can't get anybody to listen, and they have some complicated theory that nobody wants to look up, are going to take an interest in. And all these people have very different ideas about that, how to solve their problem. So what Sam was doing was basically to claim that the Messiah is arriving imminently, and only to be told that he's been saying that for the past 4 years, and he is also resented for his doom-mongering, and for the his apparent desire to be, to hear, to want all the banks to fail, and people to suffer and starve, and all that. And so, since they know about his shtick, they don't want to hear it anymore. And Vaughan has his, rather long-winded and complicated explanation of why Americans can't get justice. And I would say, I know what the problem is. It's nothing to do with all these things that you're talking about, corporations and admiralty law, and the fact that the District of Columbia is an independent country. It is the solution is something more simple, and I'm saying it is to do with the fact that America doesn't have an official religion. And people roll their eyes and say they've heard it all before, which of course they have, and it's a very easy to repeat sentence. And so I'm saying America doesn't have a moral system, and this means that its citizens do not have protection from each other when they commit crimes against each other. And it also means that American citizens have no way of knowing whether their legislature, i.e. Congress, is passing the right laws or not. They have no way of knowing, because there is no book that says these rules, these laws are right and that these laws are wrong. That there's no basis with which to make a decision on whether something is within the Constitution or not within the Constitution. And really, the whole process of making amendments to the Constitution is I don't think quite correct. But that there is an important document to be incorporated in the American Constitution, and it is, of course, the advice of George Washington, as well as the commandments of Allah contained in the Quran that are capable of being made into legislation. So those are the two most important points. And obviously the Constitution will have to be rewritten. I know the second, the Constitution itself is all about electors and basically who is senator and who is a representative, and how often elections are, and that kind of thing. So it is about the nuts and bolts of the political system of America, but it doesn't have a moral system in the true sense of the word. It's not enough to say Americans will pursue happiness. Or that man was created equal. It's not detailed enough. I know there are 27 amendments, and I know Americans are a bit vague about anything beyond the 10th, or beyond the first 5, really. I can't pretend to be familiar with it myself. But I'm saying it's not really a good idea. It's not really a good idea to have a Bill of Rights that has up to 27 rights. I just don't think it's a correct way to classify it. And my way would be to incorporate the commandments of Allah into the American Constitution, as well as George Washington's speech, and then anything that falls in is in harmony with the above two gets to stay, and anything that isn't gets to go. And I think that is the sufficient level of detail that is required to make an advanced legal and political system run. So the Constitution would basically be the Quran and a list, which I'm not going to compile because it's not my place. So it's for Americans to go through the Quran to identify the commandments of Allah and to make those capable of being turned into legislation, and leave the others that are not. It's not complicated when you put it like that. So I don't see how this would in any way curtail anybody's rights, because I think if you have this system, you would get, well, okay, the American public would think, oh, wow, they're really doing something at last. It's a solution I can believe in because it's obviously a big solution, and well, somebody is serious about it. So I better read the Quran. Well, that's a logical thought process. If I were an American citizen, and talking about the Quran, I've heard today that Xi Jinping is apparently talking about having another translation of the Quran that would be in harmony with socialism. So this would be intriguing. This was pointed out to me by a Muslim who thought President Xi was evil because he dared to do such a thing. But the thing is, I tend to look on the bright side, and I'm saying that actually, it's excellent news. It means that people will read. Well, I hope they will at least form the intention of reading the translation that is currently available, in anticipation of reading the new translation to see if there's any difference. So actually, this interest in the Quran is very heartening. I mean, if China takes an interest in the Quran, I mean, I think, well, everybody ought to take an interest in the Quran. I mean, secular Quranism with Chinese characteristics would be perfect. Because what I've been I've been trying to be emphatic about it, which is that you don't have to be Muslim to support secular Quranism. You just have to be a social conservative. And because you'd see the point of it, and you'd see how the Quran would establish, restore, and maintain such a system. And if this is what you want, and if things work out okay, then you'll be happier than you were before. Am I even live? I have to check. Oh, hello, everybody. Yeah, sometimes you're not even sure if you're alive. Now, where was I? I've forgotten what I was saying. I will quickly. Oh, what was I going to say? Oh yes, China taking an interest in the Quran. Xi Jinping saying he was going to translate, or have a new translation of the Quran, and I think that is actually good news. And if you don't like because it would be interesting to see what the objections would be if there are indeed objections to the way she is proposing to translate the Quran. I mean, any creating of interest in reading the Quran can only be a good thing. Have I finished the subject of Oren McIntyre? So basically, he was just whinging that conservatism is dead, and Americans should build something new. And that is so incredibly dumb because it's so vague. But it could mean that he is thinking along the lines of what I'm thinking, which is to create a new moral system, to promote a new moral system. And I'm saying conservatism cannot work without religion. That is really the bottom line. It cannot work without religion because you can't take marriage seriously if you don't have religion, or if you don't think in terms of generations and descendants and posterity and big words like that. And so you need religion, and if Christianity is kaput, then there is an obvious solution. And that, I suppose, is what I find so frustrating. All these people who really already get what I'm saying, but pretend not to. And it is this level of intellectual dishonesty that I find infuriating. So, is there a problem or not? They can't decide because they know that if they say, yes, there is a problem, I'm going to offer them secular Quranism and they don't want it. But if they say, no, there's no problem, they've only they know they're lying to themselves. And they're really saying there isn't a problem because they don't want what I have to offer. And they can't really reject it because there is nothing else around. And so there's one other thing that I wanted to mention before I go, which is every now and then I get people who really hate secular Quranism, and they try to pick a fight with me, and the Muslim grooming gangs, and they think they have a right to do this to our women, and it is a trope. And I suppose for people who, okay, there are people who want to hate Muslims, and so it would suit them to think of Muslims as being sex predators, and they're not really interested in the truth. They just need to, water their hatred with these tropes that they need to believe in. And I suppose some of you are going to say, "Oh, but they are Asian, they are Muslim. What are you going to do about that?" And I'm saying, well, you could sort of generalize it to, oh, the men. You have to do something about these men who, all rapists are men, all sex predators, are men. And you could say that, or you can say, well, all murderers are people. So, well, stay away from them and keep well away from them. But that wouldn't make much sense. And I mean, are there any peculiarities about, Rotherham and Rochdale having so many incidents? And it's like, yes, it's because of the care homes, and care home fees are much cheaper there, and therefore um, councils in England, in the south, who have much higher running costs, would send girls who've been kicked out of their home by their unmarried single mothers who don't want their daughter to be too interesting to their current living boyfriend, while they get kicked out. And so the obvious answer is to discourage these unmarried mothers from kicking out their daughters, or discourage women from being unmarried mothers in the first place. I mean, you would have thought that would be the obvious solution, but no. There are lots of things in a neurotic society that you cannot say, even though it is the obvious thing, if you're being honest and logical, because they won't hear of it. They won't hear of it because it's something to do with their sacred cows and their cherished beliefs, and they don't want you to be poking around with your stick about their sacred beliefs. And now we come to the church. And this is when I say the solution is really very simple. It won't even mean the closing down of churches. But you see, these people, these Christians, these Catholics who love their church music and all that, they need to think of me as somebody of such monstrous proportions that I would be burning down their places of religious worship. They need to do that in order to feel their hatred and fear to not accept secular Quranism. And it's very hard to tell whether they really believe that, I'm going to be doing these things, or they only pretend to do it because so they can, put up more of a resistance to my idea. But frankly, they are out of ideas. It's not, there's only five world religions. There's no point going for a smaller religion, is there? Just go for the big ones, and there are 5 big ones. And really, if you have to trade up, haven't you? You can't be having. Well, you can't as a Christian. It's really the worst religion ever. It's the least no-hide religion of all the 5 Gentile religions. Because it's worse than Hinduism, because it's idolatry and blasphemy. Worshipping Jesus, worshipping God as a co-equal of an executed blasphemer is, it would be very offensive to God if he exists. So that's blasphemy, and it's also idolatry. And again, I have problems in getting this point accepted. There will be all these Christians who pretend that they don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know what I'm talking about because Of course, they're not idolaters. Only other people are idolaters, but not Christians with their idols of Jesus and Mary. So really, the neurosis is with Christians or people who identify as Christian or people who are post-Christian, because it seems they can't get it round their heads that they need a moral system. And I'm saying, obviously you need a moral system because you need to know when your politicians are passing laws that are obviously wrong and harmful. I know a lot of people think, oh, but we'll know, we'll know it's obvious that, when something is wrong. But it's like, well, what about, all that, LGBT? You didn't know anything was wrong. I mean, it was like, yeah, it was okay. We had abortions, and then now there's so many abortions, you have to ban it. And it was okay to let people be gay, and now they can get legally married. There's actually a problem with the whole thing now, and there are worse things such as transgenderism, and then it gets worse. It's like, you get all these transsexual people, transgender people committing mass murder. So these things that you couldn't imagine being problems have now become quite big problems. And well, I'm just here to help and wondering why people can't have a sensible conversation about it and ask the obvious question. And I don't know what it is. Is it because I've already communicated my message and so well that they already know what I'm going to say and they don't want to hear it again? Or they know it's some sort of thorny subject that they just really don't want to talk about. And while they're not going to not listen to me while I say what I want to say about the subject, they will not be seeking to unduly prolong our exchanges. I think that is basically the problem. But I'm saying you should try to solve it as soon as possible, and that it is capable of solution. Well, obviously, I have to think that. You may not agree, but ultimately, it's all about people changing their minds and thinking, well, it could work, and I want to support it because it would be a nice change to be supporting something that turned out to be a winner. That could be a good reason to support it. The other reason to support it would be because you cared about your society and your race and your nation, and you want, your children to have grandchildren, and for you to have descendants, all that sort of thing. So this means having to engage with big ideas and asking obvious questions and not, clamming up and being unresponsive in the hope that I will just go away. The online trolling is it worse now, would you say? I haven't really noticed, to be honest. Yes, the world has lots of problems, so lots of reasons. I think I'm quite good at working them out. And if there's nobody better at working them out than me, I mean, you should just crown me queen, right? And obviously, we need to discuss it because the more you talk about it, the more ideas are generated. Yes, I do know that the media lie, but there are ways of telling. Oh, yes, today Stephen James was doing a stream about Chat GPT with Douglas Murray on Fox and Friends, talking about, well, Elon Musk basically saying that AI has to stop for 6 months because they're scared about something. Is there something to be scared about? I mean, obviously, if you don't want students cheating on their essays and getting ChatGPT to do their homework for them, what else can you be afraid of? I did try it for a bit, and then you realise that, well, it's unaccountable. So it may say libelous things, it may tell lies, and then pretend to be sorry, and then repeat the same lie, and it's just like people do sometimes, don't they? And but the thing is, it's unaccountable, and you can't blame it for anything, really. I mean, yes, it might be your secretary and even give you advice sometimes. But what I suppose it does particularly well is to write essays for you or poetry. And how do you get around that? Well, you just return. You just bring back written examinations. Okay, I haven't noticed things getting worse for the trolling. Perhaps I'm fortunate. Perhaps I'm just not important to. But talking about troll, hello, Christine Ramsey. Yeah, you see, here she goes again. Just I wish they'd go back to where they came from and all that. I mean, is there any point in saying it? Well, I suppose if you're going to be passive aggressive and want to make all these people feel unwelcome, which is of course your intention, but it gives a poor impression, I suppose. But I guess you don't really care. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that if you don't think you can organise so much as a piss up in a brewery, it's something to do with the fact that your moral system isn't working, because your organisational system isn't working. Your organisational system isn't working because, well, maybe you don't have reliable people, because degenerates who can't be trusted, who are not as strong or clever or rich as their parents. And we would like our lives to be predictable again. And I'm saying there are ways of doing it. You just have to, all you have to do is ask. That is the thing. It's not that hard. All you have to do is talk about it. And I'm saying that maybe social media is a distraction, because obviously if you post your shit in the chat and that's it, nothing is going to happen. You kind of need to talk about it in real life to somebody about secular Quranism. You can solicit ideas about it. It's quite a good conversational starter, isn't it? Somebody complains about the government, and you go up to and you say, "Hey, Have you heard of secular Quranism? Maybe it could solve all our problems. What do you think our problems are? Is it A, B, and C? And can the Quran solve, these problems? Or there are all kinds of things you could do if you wanted to. And I'm saying that all of you individually can help just by opening your mouths and talking about secular Quranism with some living person who is actually in the room with you, and talk about it. What mention my channel. Because really what we want is for the ruling classes to adopt it. I mean, obviously that is the ultimate goal, isn't it? Getting the ruling classes to adopt it, hopefully with great success. Stephen James has just rolled up. I can't be bothered to repeat myself. It's really boring. There's no point listening to it. I did mention you, though. All right. I'll go now. But I think you should all mention secular Quranism to somebody you trust and ask them if they think that it might, after all, be all right.